Howdy folks, and good morning. I am on my way up to AOAA this morning on a Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. to do some trail maintenance for the Jeep Jamboree. And I just wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about the new truck and basically how I'm liking it so far. So if you don't know, back in October of 24, we decided that the Cadillac, which was what I was using as a tow rig, was just being a little too unreliable. I kept having this problem where, especially when I towed, and especially on warmer days, which, let's face it, I'm a summer wheeler. I don't wheel much in the winter, and I tow primarily on warm days because it's summer. Anyway, I would tow and it would stall out on me, which is unacceptable. Like, I would come up to a stop sign, or the last time it happened, I was actually pulling into the parking lot at AOAA and it just stalled. It wasn't in a spot yet, and I'm like blocking crap up and couldn't get the damn thing to restart again. And well, I had been fighting that issue since I got it, since I started towing with it, and I could not figure it out. Now that it's sold, I really wonder, like now that it's gone and I've replaced it, I really wonder if it was something like vapor lock, like heat soak like we get in the Wrangler, but too late now, I've already sold it. So that's gone, and I got a 2024 Chevy Silverado. You might say that I overcorrected from an unreliable used vehicle that was affordable to a ridiculously expensive but hopefully reliable tow vehicle. But, you know, hopefully I have this truck for a long time, and if that is the case, then I don't think I mind the price so much. It is going to hurt for a couple of years, but we're okay with it. Like, we're comfortable enough that we can afford the truck. And that's kind of the first thing I want to talk about, is the price of this truck. We bought in late 2024, the auto market, not in a great place, but I felt like we didn't have a lot of choice. If you're looking to buy a truck like this, man, they are not cheap. Like, really, think hard about whether you can afford this truck or not. I see a lot of folks driving these things that, you know, you can tell it's probably a stretch on their finances, and it's a stretch on mine, and we get, well, I don't want to get too deep into that, but anyway, be responsible. Don't buy the flashy truck because it's flashy. I probably could have gone used, but I was so worried about buying another used vehicle after the Cadillac that I talked myself into the more expensive truck. So hopefully I don't regret that over time. Anyway, I got a 2024 Silverado RST with a 5.3 liter. Now, I really considered the 3.0, I think it is, Baby Max, they call it, turbo diesel. And I heard a lot of folks say that they love that engine. It's great for towing, but I was just a little iffy on the way diesels work nowadays with that DEF system, you know, the emission stuff that's in there. And mainly, I was worried about whether my wife would be able to just pick up the keys and take the truck out, because that is a thing that she does sometimes. You know, she has her own vehicle, but, you know, she's not afraid to drive the truck, and I didn't want to make her afraid to do that. So I decided to go with a gasser, and here we are. Now, the Cadillac had the 6.2, and that thing pulled really well. I was never really upset with how well the 6.2 pulled. There were a couple long hill pulls that it kind of disappointed me on, but I think that was more about the transmission than the engine. And we'll get to all that in a second. So, like I said, 5.3. It's got the dynamic fuel management, DFM, which I don't love, but it does help with the fuel economy. It runs on as little as 4 cylinders when you're just kind of puttering around town, but when you need it, it opens them up, and you know, you get that extra horsepower. I don't know. Some people say that leads to torque converter issues later. Some people say it leads to lifter failure later. I don't like those ideas on a truck that I intend to keep for a long time. But there is a kit you can buy that will basically eliminate the DFM from your 5.3, but it's like open heart surgery on your engine. There's also a module you can plug in, goes in line with the plug to the computer on the truck, that will not only disable DFM, but it also turns off the auto start-stop feature, which is another thing I don't like about this truck. If I turn off the auto start-stop, it turns it back on every time I start it, but I guess that's common with any new vehicle nowadays, government mandates and whatnot being what they are. So, every time I get in the truck, I have to turn off the auto start-stop because it is the stupidest feature I've ever used. I don't know who decided like when the truck should shut off and when it shouldn't, but it always feels like when I am stopped for a long time in traffic, when it could actually be saving fuel and emissions, it doesn't turn off. And when I'm stopped for like half a second at a stoplight, it turns off and starts again. And really, what did I gain there? Half a second of downtime and the engine stopping and starting. Like, all it did was make me slower. And does that lead to wear and tear on the engine? I kind of think that it does. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. The auto start stop I don't like, so I guess it is what it is. Let's see, what else? As funny as it sounds, the entertainment system in this thing, while it is very nice, it is buggy. There's been a couple times when I've gotten in the truck and started it up and started driving and I have no sound and I can't figure out why. And this is apparently a common problem for newer GM vehicles with this newer system. In fact, I had that happen once or twice in the Cadillac, so I wonder if this is something that has to do with the audio system that GM has been putting in vehicles as far back as 2008 and they've just never fixed it, which scares me a little bit. The other thing is that the Onstar is always connected, and me being a little bit of a privacy guy doesn't love that, but there's some nice features that go along with it, like the ability to check on the status of the truck from my phone. Did I forget to lock the doors? Can I start it now because, you know, I'm on a flight back from some business trip and I'd really like the truck to be warm when I get there. You know, I'm on the tram back to the parking area and I want to start the truck up. Really handy. But it requires a cellular connection. And if you don't pay for OnStar, then they disable a bunch of the cool features. Now the start, stop from the phone and the lock and unlock and the vehicle status, those all work. But there's like connected Wi-Fi. The stereo uses Google and it can do all the connected services like Spotify and whatever right from the stereo. And without the cell connection, it can't do any of that. Also, it has a Wi-Fi hotspot, like if you want your kids' tablets to be able to get onto the internet. These are all things that weren't important enough to me to pay for. It's like $30 a month for OnStar Premium or whatever that I would have needed. I just thought that was a little too much. Anyway, I digress. What you probably care about... miles, turn left. What you probably care about is the towing on this vehicle, which is primarily why I bought it, right? So let me give you some insight here. With the Cadillac, it was really nice to have an enclosed rear, especially for the kids. You know, to be able to have a basically mobile changing room or whatever it is that they needed. If we're on a long trip and they want to lay down and sleep, right? They got plenty of room to do that. It had reclining seats in the back, 2 captain's chairs. You know, it was basically if you're familiar with the interior of a Suburban, it was just like that, except a little bit more plush. This is not that. It's a truck, right? The back seat of it does not recline because there's, you know, a bulkhead behind you. The seats are not nearly as comfortable as they were in the Cadillac, although the front seats aren't so bad. It's, you know, interior-wise, it's a truck, right? And trucks today are not the utilitarian thing that they used to be, but it's definitely not a Cadillac. even a 20-year-old Cadillac, almost 20-year-old Cadillac. But the ability to have a truck bed on the back was attractive because I do a lot of DIY stuff that having a truck bed is really handy instead of having to pull a trailer to pick stuff up, which is what I was doing before. There have been a couple times where I had loaded lumber in the back of the Cadillac and it had done a little bit of damage to the interior, which I didn't love. So, you know, it's a trade-off. If you're considering a Suburban or Cadillac Escalade like I had versus a pickup truck, think about this stuff. The interior is going to take some damage if you're hauling stuff like, you know, stuff from the lumber place and whatever. But the towing capacity is also higher on the truck than it was on the Cadillac. The Cadillac maxed out at like 8250, or no, it was just under. It was like 78, which is still plenty for towing a Jeep on a trailer. But I needed the weight distribution hitch and all that, which I still use with the truck today. But if I had bought the truck to begin with, maybe I wouldn't have needed the weight distribution hitch. The back of this truck does sag a bit if I don't use the weight distribution hitch on the back. Does that mean it wouldn't tow? I don't know. I think it would probably tow without it. I'd have to look at the specs to see if the manufacturer recommends the weight distribution hitch for the 6,000 or so pounds that I'm towing. A lot of people have told me you don't need those things, but I do like the sway control on the hitch, which is one of the features of the hitch. One of the reasons I bought the hitch that I bought. Okay. Towing. This is the really important thing that I wanted to talk about. I was worried that the 5.3 would not have the towing capacity that I needed. It has the capacity, I shouldn't say that. I was worried that it wouldn't have the towing experience that I wanted. Because one of the complaints I had with the Cadillac was, even though it had all that horsepower with that 6.2, there were times when I was, you know, trying to climb a hill or something where I didn't get enough momentum at the bottom, and it just struggled like you wouldn't believe to get up those hills. You know, I'd be climbing the hill at 40 miles an hour and not able to go any faster, and that was frustrating, right? Because I had all that horsepower. But I really think that was the transmission. That had, if I recall, a 6-speed transmission in it. This has a 10-speed transmission in it. That, combined with the fact that it's a newer engine, right? It's not as old and tired as the 6.2 was, and whatnot. We towed out to Bantam with it last weekend, and it did awesome. I mean, some of the same hills that the Cadillac had trouble on, this pulled like nothing. It just right up them, right? And if I was halfway up the hill and wanted to go a little faster, I just gave a little throttle and off it went. It did not struggle, and the fuel economy was about the same as it was with the 6.2. Now the 6.2 around town was getting me like 12, maybe 13 miles per gallon if I was lucky. This gets 16 to 18 depending on what I'm doing with it. And that was before I did things like the tonneau cover, which I don't know if you can see that behind me. This had no tonneau cover, no steps, and no bed liner when I got it. Those three things are things that I have done to it since I bought it. The tonneau cover will supposedly help with aerodynamics, and it should help with fuel economy, but I haven't really seen the result of that yet because I only put it on there just 2 weeks ago. This got about 11 towing, and that's the same as the Cadillac. The Cadillac would drop to about 11.2, I think was the best I saw with it while towing over the highway. This got about the same towing over the highway. And the improvements for day-to-day driving mean that, all in all, this is a more economic truck. The 6.2 also, they didn't require, but they recommended premium fuel. So I was usually putting mid-grade fuel in it, even though they recommended premium. I had to put in premium when I was towing. And that's like 50 cents a gallon more expensive, depending where you get it from, you know? So this uses regular fuel, 87 octane. So at the end of the day, it's cheaper to tow with this thing than it was to tow with the Cadillac. It's cheaper to just drive day to day than it was to drive with the Cadillac. So, you know, the Cadillac was nice, don't get me wrong. If I had been able to figure out the problem with it, I probably would have kept it and kept towing with it. I would have had it paid off in like another year. And to begin with, it was a third of the price of this thing. Like, we're going to talk a little bit financials. I brought $12,000 to the table plus the Cadillac when I bought this thing. Now, I traded the Cadillac. I probably should have sold it outright, but in Pennsylvania, that is a pain in the ass when you owe money. Because I still owed like $3,000 on the Cadillac. I paid $20,000 for it when I bought it. I still owed $3,000 on it. Could I have taken that $12,000 and paid off the Cadillac and then sold it instead of trading it? Probably, but I really wanted to put as much money as possible onto the truck, and in my brain that meant put the 12 grand on the truck. Well, by the time I put the 12 grand in, and then they added the tax and tags, and they gave me, I'm not kidding, pennies, like insulting low money for the Cadillac. They gave me like 2 grand for a 2008 Cadillac Escalade with the 6.2 in it. I should have walked away when they did that, but I was just like, I was feeling the pressure. I really wanted to get this thing done. Anyway, by the time I financed this thing, even with the 12 grand down, the tax and the tags, the negative equity on the Caddy, I feel like I may as well have not had a down payment. That's how much I had to finance. I financed like $60K for this truck. It's frustrating how expensive trucks are. Another nice thing about this truck is the added trailering features. It'll detect when you've got a trailer connected to it. Now, a lot of modern trucks do this. This is not a Silverado specific thing. We looked at the Toyota Tundra, and we looked briefly at the Dodge Ram. My wife didn't like the Dodge Ram. So it was between this and the Tundra. The Tundra was having Toyota was having some engine recall issues at the time that we were shopping, so that steered us away from the Tundra. The price was about the same, the price point. But anyway, I digress. The towing features on this thing are pretty nice. It's got a camera that will focus on the hitch. Again, not exactly like standout, only Chevy does this feature, but it's a nice to have thing. It's got tow assist that'll help you do things like be aware of lane changes, including the length of your trailer. It's got jackknife detection, which I've never really utilized, but will be nice to have, I think, if I'm ever going to end up in that situation. It has connections where I can put cameras on the trailer if I want to be able to watch the trailer load, or if I want to put a backup camera on the trailer so that I can see behind the trailer when I'm backing up. Those are nice things to have. And it's sort of aware of the size of your trailer, which is something I like. When I first connected the trailer, I had to measure a bunch of things, like from the tongue to the wheels, or I forget what it was, everything that I had to measure. But that's to help it do things like that jackknife control and the lane change assist. The lane change sensors, supposedly, I haven't really tested this thoroughly, but supposedly the lane change sensors will extend to the length of my trailer based on those measurements that I put in. So I think that's a nice feature. I think it's nice because then I don't have to worry as much about when I'm switching lanes. I'm also really careful when I'm driving on the highway anyway, but you know, it's nice to have that extra feature. So I'm climbing a hill at the moment. You can hear the engine nice and roaring, but I wanted to start the video again because I'm about to merge onto the interstate, and I just kind of wanted to give you guys a feel for how that works.
Use the right lane to keep right to merge onto I-81 South.
That's another thing I didn't talk about. This thing has, when I turn on the turn signal, it uses the side, like the parking cameras, to show me what I'm about to merge into,
keep
which
right.
is, I think, kind of cool. All right. Here we are. It's like a swooping turn I got to go through here, so I had to take it slow, and then I got to get up to the 65 mile an hour cruising speed on the highway. So I wanted to kind of give you a feel for what that's like in this truck, because when I was heading out to Bantam, it was nice. I never had any issues, I think, merging with traffic, which was kind of cool. The Caddy didn't either. All right, 30 miles an hour.
Stay in the left 2 lanes. In about 14 miles, take exit 116 onto Pennsylvania 901.
And here we are at 65. I usually get up to about 70 to cruise, but you know, not too bad, right? It did not struggle at all. Now, like I said, I can't say that the Cadillac struggled on that same ramp, but you know, it's just a good gut feeling, I think, from this truck. When I punch it, it can move, even with the trailer on, which I like. All right, so yeah, I'm not going to say that I recommend this truck for everybody, right? Everyone's use case, everyone's life is different. I'm liking the truck. I really, it's comfortable. I don't feel, I mean, I do feel like it was expensive, but given the auto market, I don't feel like it was overly expensive for what I got. I'm very happy with this truck so far. Like I said, I've had it, let's see, it's now June, late June. So I've probably had it just exactly, let's see, October, 9 months. And yeah, I've been really happy with it. Other than that weird audio cutout problem I've had from time to time, I've had zero issues with the truck. It tows awesome. It handles the trailer just, the Cadillac handled the trailer fine, don't get me wrong, but this just feels like it handles it better. I don't have, when I would go down steep hills in the Cadillac, I never felt as comfortable. With this, I do. I guess the brakes are probably bigger on a truck than they would have been on the Cadillac. The axles are beefier underneath this than they were underneath the Cadillac. I was actually kind of surprised the first time I crawled under the Cadillac to see how kind of small the drivetrain looked, given the 6.2 liter underneath. But it was all-wheel drive as well. This is not. This is four-wheel. I didn't get an off-road package or anything. I can turn on four-wheel, only high. There's no low range, but, you know, for what I'm doing with it, I think that's probably fine. I don't intend to wheel this thing. I don't think I'm going to need a low range. I have the Jeeps, plural, for that kind of thing. So, yeah, you know, it's cool. It's cool, I think. Yeah, I think that's everything. All right, so if you guys have any questions about the purchase, if you have any questions about the truck, about what I like or what I don't like, feel free to throw them in the comments. Let me know. I'll do my best to get you an answer. I am thinking that once the warranty has expired on this truck, which is like, I think 8 years. I bought an extended warranty because of the amount of money I financed. Once the warranty expires, I may look into the DFM delete kit for the engine, and maybe I'll do that myself. I don't know, but that's a long way away. I'll be in my 50s by then. My gosh, stop getting old. I keep getting older. Anyway, oh, I didn't mention, I've got about 5,000 miles on the truck by now, and so there you go. These opinions are based on 5,000 miles and 9 months of driving the truck. All right, so folks, if you like this content, please give it a like. Like I mentioned, if you have any questions, throw them into the comments. And remember, folks, get out there and wheel. I'll catch you in the next one.